Welcome to the FTP Podcast. This is the inaugural edition. I feel like I need some epic music or something to play right here. But we're going to get we'll run through a few different things. We'll go through some sports headlines, take a look. We have an interview coming up and a few other crazy things. This one's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride, so you may need to hold on to your butts, but we're going to make it through it. So stay tuned. Right after this break, we'll get things rolling.
This is the FTP Podcast.
All right, let's jump right into things. We're going to start things off with a couple of sports headlines. I mean, Tim Tebow, one of the most polarizing figures in sports, is back in an NFL uniform. He's going to be lining up for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I mean, I'm not sure what you can say about that because I'm not even sure what they're going to do. I think at this point, Chip Kelly has shown all of us that we have no idea what he's going to do next. He's brought in Sam Bradford, shipped out Nick Foles, shipped out LaShawn McCoy, and now he brings in Tebow to look like he's going to back up Mark Sanchez for the second time. Earlier this week, Sanchez said that Tim Tebow was nothing more than a camp arm, but I have a little bit of a tough time believing that because if you're looking for a camp arm, why, number one, bring the controversy, and number two, bring a guy who has a reputation of not exactly being the best quarterback. So I think Chip Kelly definitely has something a little bit more drastic in mind for Tebow than just being a camp arm. Him making the roster may still be a bit of a long shot, but I definitely think he's going to be given every opportunity because when a guy like Tebow comes to your roster, you know the media circus is going to follow him, and he's never been one shy of talking into a microphone, especially considering he just left the job with the SEC Network to get back in the field. But hey, we'll see what happens. I mean, John Gruden did say a couple of months ago that if you put Tim Tebow on a field with some other quarterbacks around the league and you put them in a helmet and had no idea who the different ones were, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference because he had been working on his throwing motion and things of that nature. And if Gruden's right, which Gruden does have a pretty good reputation of evaluating quarterbacks, then this is going to be definitely very interesting because Tebow's always had the leadership qualities that you love in a quarterback. He has those. He's a leader. And I think that's one of the things that got him into the first round, and that's going to be one of the things, if he can actually throw now, oh my goodness, this could be very exciting. Talking about John Gruden, why don't we jump right into a little bit of sound of him talking about the NFL draft that's coming up. Him and Mel Kiper both talked earlier this week about some guys that they're looking at coming up in the draft.
Well, you know, I used to worry about everything the Bucs did for several years, and I don't know who best fits Tampa Bay right now. It'd be a tough decision for them if they go with the quarterback. I like Mike Glennon personally. I thought he did some really good things as a rookie. I thought they had some issues last year with the offensive line, certainly, and Jeff Tedford's illness, it derailed them. But they're different quarterbacks. It all depends on what Lovie Smith, Dirk Cutter, and the front office are looking to do in the short term and in the long term. Both are underclassmen. I'm talking about Mariota and Winston. They need some seasoning. They might need a little bit of time. But you'd have to ask Dirk Cutter and Lovie Smith. I would be eager to get my hands on either one of these young prospects because they both have a lot of talent and intangibles that are hard to find. Cooper from Alabama, White from West Virginia, Devontae Parker, Jalen Strong at Arizona State. Philip Dorsett at Miami, Florida has T.Y. Hilton-like qualities. This kid can fly. Devin Smith, Ohio State. I love Nelson Aguilar at USC. He does all the things I'm looking for. I think Devin Funchess at Michigan is going to be a real gem for some creative offensive coach. Perryman at Central Florida, who runs 4.26. I don't know very many people. You know, there's just so many that are in this draft. Man, we didn't even talk about Dorial Green-Beckham at Missouri or Oklahoma, Sammy Coates at Auburn. You can get a really good receiver this year in the second or third round, no question.
It's hard to really figure where Gurley and Gordon go. Could they go, eighth to Atlanta? Yeah. Could they go, 12th to Cleveland? One of them? Sure, they could. Miami's at 14. San Diego could take a running back at 17. And you go down the line, if you get into the 20s, then you have teams that could take running backs as well. Case in point, Arizona, Baltimore, Dallas. So there's a lot of destination spots, landing spots for those two running backs. But I think both Gurley and Gordon go definitely in the first round now. And Gordon, like I say, could be a top 20, 25 pick. Now, the only issue with Gordon is he's got to keep improving as a receiver, which he's made strides there, and he's got to be better with ball security, and his running skills are phenomenal. And his pass blocking, I think, is underrated. He'll get his nose dirty there. So if he can just keep working on becoming a consistent pass receiving option and eliminate the fumbling issues and the fumbling issue problems from this past year and his career, then he will be a great back in the NFL.
Yeah, well, I definitely think Gruden and Kiper know a little bit about what they're talking about. I consider myself a bit of a draft nerd, and there are a lot of guys that I prefer in the draft, and I don't necessarily prefer. I'm definitely one of my sleeper guys is Zach Zinner from South Dakota State. I mean, this guy, I think he has all the talent in the world, and he's going to be one of the guys that I think ends up being the steal of this year's draft. I mean, he's a white running back, so everybody was quick to say, well, who can you compare him to? Because, that's the big thing in the draft circles is to find comparisons to simplify players. And, I mean, when you start thinking about white running backs, everyone's going to scream out Peyton Hillis, but that is not who this guy is. It's actually tough for me to come up with a comparison for him off the top. I mean, he's 5'11", 223. He ran a 4.6 at the combine, and he definitely has a shifty running style, but he can get physical as well. He has wheels. I like him, and he can catch out of the backfield. I don't necessarily think he's going to be a rookie star, but I think he's going to come in and make somebody's roster and definitely have an opportunity to contribute early on. A couple of other big storylines heading into draft day. One of the main ones is Todd Gurley. Everyone kind of wants to see where he's going to go after the injury. I think it's unquestioned that he's one of the most talented running back prospects to come out of college, since possibly Adrian Peterson. It's unarguable. I mean, every time he touches the ball, he definitely makes a play, and it's exciting. So you have to think that people are starting. They haven't had a running back taken in the first round recently, and he could break this trend and didn't even play most of his senior season just because of his unarguable talent. He's going to be a difference maker as long as he can stay healthy, and I think health is the number one concern because he does have a physical running style, and he has had a couple of injuries throughout his college career. But I think he'll be all right. I think he's probably going to be a very early first-round pick. The other major one, obviously, Jameis Winston. We're not even going to get into that whole circus too much because I think at this point, everything that needs to be said about Winston has been said, and it's just time for him to go out there and produce. How far will Randy Gregory fall? Going into the draft process, he was a consensus top 10, one of the top players in the draft. And he failed a drug test at the combine, so now everyone's saying that he may fall possibly into the 20s, maybe even into the early second round. I think the talent is unarguable. He's not necessarily one of my favorite players just because I think he's a little stiff at times, but I definitely think in this year's draft class, it is unarguable that he is one of the better and more productive college football players in the country. And one failed drug test, given that it was at the biggest job interview of his life, definitely does raise a red flag, but at the same time, he was in Nebraska. What's there to do in Nebraska? I mean, look at NFL teams. The ones that normally have problems with guys failing drug tests are ones in the middle of nowhere. Not saying that Randy Gregory's failed drug test is okay by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that if in the right situation, I don't believe it'll be a reoccurring problem. All right, moving right along, one of the biggest fights I guess it's being made to be one of the biggest fights in history is coming up next weekend. Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. We've all been waiting for this one forever, it feels like, and it's finally here. And a lot of people don't even know what to make of it. I think some people are saying, well, you waited too late and this and that and all the other things. We caught up with a member of the money team, and we got his input on the fight and a number of other things surrounding Mayweather. Let's take a listen to what he had to say. You guys have been connected for a while there. I guess you've been around for a lot of the bigger fights in his career. I guess this one's being made out to be almost a Super Bowl of fights that is coming up. I mean, when people have been waiting for it for a while, what's kind of the vibe going on for a fight like this one?
I mean, we keep everything the same. Floyd's still Floyd. He's still doing what he been doing to stay on top. He not doing nothing special. He doing what he been doing. You know, we just looking at it like another fight. You can't get caught up in the hype. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah,
you can't get caught up in the hype and lose focus.
Right.
Floyd been here before. He been at the big dance before. He been at the big dance before he turned professional. When he was an amateur at the Olympics representing the United States. You know what I mean? It don't get no bigger than that. When you're fighting for your country, when you got your whole country on your back. He getting a lot of heat online about the comment that he made to Stephen A. Smith. Now, I was in the car when they was doing that interview. And, you know, like Floyd told him, it all started from a conversation with LeBron and Jordan. And Floyd said, it's nothing wrong with Floyd saying he's the greatest. That's how he feels. There's nothing wrong with him saying that. There's nothing wrong with him. He take his hat off to Ali and them. He don't got nothing but respect for them. But if he feels he's a better fighter than them, what's wrong with somebody saying that? He's not disrespecting those guys at all. It's okay for other people to say they're the greatest, but if he said and that's how he feel, it's a problem. I just think people look at everything Floyd do with a microscope, man.
I agree. I'd agree with that. I mean, think about it this way. As an athlete, if he's stepping in the ring, he can't walk in the ring and say, well, somebody else is better than me. He's supposed to believe he's the greatest, right?
At all. You got to.
I mean, because if you ask Tyson, they asked Tyson when he was doing it. He stepped in the ring and he thought he was God. He was the greatest to ever do it.
Exactly.
And you ask most guys, especially in a sport like boxing, you have to believe that. Or, I mean, once you stop believing that, it's over.
You might as well get out the game.
Right.
You know, I just think, man, a lot of times people let their jealousy and their envy towards a person cloud their judgment, especially with this Pacquiao fight. You know, a lot of people think Floyd going to lose. They're not thinking about the boxing part of it. They just want, the hater in them just want him to lose.
Right.
Because they hating on the lifestyle. They hating how his attitude is. They don't like him personally, so they want him to lose. But if you take all that out of the situation and you just put the two talents in there and tell a person to make their judgment, it's no way this guy could beat Floyd. If you're basing it off of talent. But you know, people let they dislike for Floyd cloud their judgment, man. But like I said, they're going to miss him when he's gone from the sport.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because like you said, he's carried boxing for so long. Every Floyd Mayweather fight is the fight of the year.
Exactly. I mean, if you take Floyd out of boxing right now, if you take this Pacquiao fight off the table right now, what big fight can you tell me?
See, that's a rough one. I mean, they have some up-and-coming boxers, like you said. And I mean, Bronner's one of the names that they're going to try.
What big fight can you tell me? But right now, that'll do good in pay-per-view, that had a whole world talking right now. If you take Floyd out of boxing,
I can't name one.
Floyd can get in the ring with you. Floyd can get in the ring with you, and it'll be a big event.
You're right. You are very right. I agree with that 100%. Because everybody wants to see what he's going to do. He has built himself up like that. He has that sort of name and that sort of power in the sport. I mean, if he wanted to pick up and do another sport, I think he'd have that same sort of effect on that.
Yeah, some people just got it. Some people just got it, man. And he worked hard to get where he at, man. So when I hear people like Freddie Roach did an interview the other day, they asked him, what is it about Floyd? He said, I don't like his lifestyle. I don't like the cars and all the women. If that's how that man chooses to live his life, that's how he chooses to live his life. It's his life. People ask me all the time, you know, because I've been there when it was just me and Floyd. And people ask me all the time, you know, how you feel about all these people who are around Floyd and this and that. They call them the entourage, the hang-ons, the tag-alongs, whatever, all of the disrespectful they could say. They talk about our team. They say about our team. But I tell people, man, why would I feel a certain way about Floyd having people around him who he's comfortable with and who he wants around him? That's his life. And if they take the time, instead of hating, if they take the time to meet some of these people, you'll realize Floyd got a lot of good people around him, man.
Well, shout out to the money team. We want to take the time to thank Mac one more time for taking some time to talk with us. We'll have more of the podcast coming up right after this quick break.
Yeah, this is Mac, TMT, the money team. You listening to FTP Podcast.
All right, touched on a lot of football so far, and now it's time to get into some basketball. NBA playoffs are rolling and definitely heated up. And as a Pelicans fan, this is a bit of a sore spot for me at the moment. My Pelicans got swept by the Golden State Warriors, and I'm going to take this moment to stand on a bit of a soapbox and say that the coach of the Pelicans is a problem. I don't want to use his name for the simple purpose of names give people strength, and I want him gone off that sideline so bad. I've been a Pelicans fan since they were the Hornets. And just plain simple, a lot of things that he does as a coach do not impress me. And one of the things that I have a major issue with, I'm very forgiving as far as coaches learning, just like players learning and adapting to their team. His rotations a lot of time leave me asking questions, but at the same time, I'll say, okay, I'm going to go with he knows a lot more about basketball than I do. So somewhere along the lines, this made sense. But when you go into a game 3, in front of your home crowd, you have a 20-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and you allow your team to find a way to lose. I have a huge problem with that. Huge, monumental. I'm not saying that Golden State, by any stretch of the imagination, is a team that is bad. They are arguably the best team in the NBA right now, and I think they definitely have a great chance at winning the championship. Steph Curry has been pulling in an MVP performance, and Klay Thompson, he's no slouch. So, and Draymond Green, in my opinion, should have been the defensive player of the year. Nothing taken away from Kawhi Leonard there, but Draymond has definitely done his thing all season. That being said, 20 points in the fourth, I don't care who you are. You dominated 3 quarters of play. You don't allow that to happen. That is a monumental meltdown. Somebody on your team has to have that killer instinct to finish the game, to close, to get the rest of the guys ready to finish the game. And I'm looking at the coach, and I'm looking at the GM, Dell Demps. I'm looking at both of you in the face and saying, you built a roster and you lack that one guy, that the firecracker, or that guy with the killer instinct that refuses to lose, that hates to lose. Chris Paul got a little bit of flack earlier this week when he did a little jumping up and down when they were losing in their game. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I want a guy who doesn't want to lose on my roster. That guy that refuses to lose. The guy that when you have a 20-point lead in the fourth quarter and all of a sudden it's starting to disappear, he takes the ball and says, forget the play, I'm going to do it myself. Somebody has to say, I'm just going to put the ball in the hoop. And as a coach, regardless of if you have that guy or not, you have to make some sort of you got to do something. I don't know. I'd rather see him get some technical fouls and get ejected from the game than finish and allow to just kind of stand there as that lead evaporates and they lose their one chance at a win in the series, because the other 3 games were pitiful. And after you lose a 20-point lead in the fourth, I didn't expect much. That is hard. That is a mental aspect and something hard to completely bounce back from. But that being said, I fully expect Golden State to have every opportunity to go on ahead and win an NBA championship, or at least make it there. Right now, they've played as one of the best teams in the NBA the entire season, and it's going to be tough pressed for somebody to knock them off. I definitely think that there are some teams that are going to give them some trouble, but right now, they're my odds-on favorite. Just me, though. All right, I'm almost out of time here, so let's go on ahead and wrap things up. We'll do our last little bite, our moment in sports history. On April 21st, 1996, the Chicago Bulls wrapped up the most successful regular season in NBA history with their 72nd victory, getting 26 points from Michael Jordan in a 103-93 decision over Washington. Jordan set an NBA record by winning his 8th NBA scoring title and breaking Wilt Chamberlain's record of 7. Let's just say impressive. And hey, I don't think this first FTP podcast went too bad myself. Stick with us. We'll have another one coming at you next week. Peace.